Good morning from War on My Country. I'm Claire Murphy. Welcome to the Solo Bureau. I need to start today by letting you know that we're going to be talking about body image, body dysmorphia, and eating disorders today. I also want to state that yes, this discussion did happen after Ariana Grande's announcement that she's stepping back from public life for a while due to the overwhelming and very unwelcome commentary about the state of her health based on the look of her body. And I want to make it very clear, we are not diagnosing Ariana Grande. We're going to talk to someone who has been in a situation that somewhat mirrors the one Ariana's found herself in, but she was in fact dealing with an eating disorder, and who wants you to know speaking up can be kind. But also, we chat to a psychologist who gives us insight into the impact of discussing someone's health from how they look, and for those who may actually be dealing with the issue we're all carelessly diagnosing a public figure with. But of course, things have been happening while you were sleeping, so let's find out what they are. It's Wednesday, August 5. Qatar claims mediators are making progress in efforts to end the US-Iran war, driving oil prices lower. Despite Iran denying they're currently engaged in talks with the US, Qatar's assertion that they are making progress on an arrangement to restore traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has seen benchmark Brent crude oil fall more than 4%. The strait is currently closed, with another tanker reportedly attacked while attempting to cross. In his second day of testimony, one of Alan Jones's alleged victims described how he received an email from the former broadcaster's accountant which suggested he was required to pay back more than $100,000. Complainant Jay previously described his relationship with Jones, who he met when he was 14, how the now 85-year-old had given him a car and paid him up to $600 a week so that he could focus on training. He said his heart nearly stopped when he received the email, which he got after he'd decreased contact with Jones, but was assured that he wouldn't have to repay it. He also described how when he stayed with Jones when he was 17, he allegedly told him there were no rules at his home, allegedly telling him to go shower and then return wearing nothing but a robe. Complainant Jay alleges that he'd already been touched inappropriately by Jones at this point, and so returned wearing underwear, to which Jones allegedly scolded him before groping the young man. He allegedly stopped when he told Jones he felt uncomfortable. The alleged victim says he was disappointed in himself for not standing up to Jones at the time, saying he didn't think anyone would believe him, then that if he did, he would lose everything. He explained that he doesn't want any money for telling his story, he just wants justice for what allegedly happened. Federal Labor has updated its tax changes so that those who inherit an investment property from their spouse won't lose existing negative gearing access. The change, which had been dubbed the widow tax, is a move to fix unintended consequences of the tax changes that would have unfairly impacted widowers, those who've gone through a divorce, or victims of domestic violence who could miss out on tax advantages previously shared with a partner. The changes allowed those who already owned property to keep their negative gearing status, but for anyone who purchases an existing property after the budget will no longer be able to use rental losses to reduce their tax bills. Wildfires are easing in Greece, with residents allowed to return to their burned-out properties. Local firefighters, supported by water bombers and backup crews from Romania and France, are still working on 3 fronts west of Athens, but strong dry winds blowing in from the Aegean Sea, known as the Meltemi, are complicating their efforts, with water bombers sometimes unable to operate. After a period of record-breaking heat waves and very little rain, Europe has been ravaged by wildfires this summer, conditions that many scientists are attributing to human-driven climate change. Meanwhile, in Japan, the current heatwave has been attributed to the deaths of 3 lions at the Tokyo Zoo, while in South Korea, a heatwave that has killed at least 19 people has been declared a natural disaster. Ebola has now killed more than 1,700 people in eastern Congo. As of Tuesday, 3,802 cases have been recorded, with more than 1,700 deaths, according to the latest update by the Democratic Republic of Congo's government, the fastest growing outbreak of the disease. The outbreak, which was declared back on May 15, has been linked to the Bundibugyo virus, for which there are no approved vaccines or treatments. Delays in contact tracing, difficulties accessing the affected areas, mistrust from the community and violence by armed groups and some residents have hampered the response. After its name was changed by European colonisers in the late 1800s, the Pacific island nation of Nauru will now revert back to its traditional name, the Republic of Nauru, following in the footsteps of Tuvalu and Kiribati, who dumped their colonial names, Ellis and Gilbert Islands. Nauru, one of the world's smallest nations with 12,000 residents, were going to take the decision to a referendum, but after realising it was not a lost name but rather one waiting to be fully embraced, the government initiated the change. They were initially colonised by Germany and later administered by Australia before becoming an independent republic in 1968. The Australian government has already adopted Nauru as the official title of the nation. Those are the top stories for today. Next, Ariana Grande is going to disappear from our lives for a while. Her people suggesting it's our relentless scrutiny of her health that has pushed her too far. But for the world, she's already been disappearing. But do we say anything about it? Ariana Grande was due to spend next year treading the boards with her Wicked co-star Jonathan Bailey in a play in London. Instead, when she ends her Eternal Sunshine tour next month, a representative for the singer told People magazine that she'll be taking a step back from public visibility, saying her recent appearances had led to endless, ongoing public scrutiny. Since Grande, in all her pink Glinda the Good Witch finery, stepped out for the press tour of Wicked in 2024, fans of the singer were a little bit shaken. She seemed to be a shadow of her former self physically. But in 2024, after decades of talking about, picking apart, criticising and obsessing over women's bodies, some of us were telling ourselves not to comment, and rightfully so. Her body is not ours to discuss. But for Media Week journalist and former TV star Natasha Lee, this doesn't sit right. After starting as a cast member of the Aussie drama Always Greener as a teenager, Natasha says she developed an eating disorder. And while the entire country watched her frame whittle down to an unhealthy size, the people around her said nothing. And she wants it to be clear this is her opinion and her perspective, respecting that your experience may differ.
I don't necessarily think it was that they were uncomfortable in discussing or commenting on a girl's body. So you've got to remember, this was when I was 14. On set, there were lots of discussions about diets. You know, there was a cast member gladly talking about the Atkins diet, and there was another cast member who would say that she was, so thin but couldn't put on any weight. She apparently was told that she has the dream body that a gay man would love to have if he was a woman. It was just perfect. She was incredibly small as well. So when I say that, the discussion about women's bodies and about bodies in general was not taboo, and it was not something that was carefully circled around, right? This was discussed very openly, and it was discussed with kind of reckless abandon as well. So the fact that you could see a child at the time sick and really shrinking before their eyes, and I don't even mean just cast members. These are crew members who then had to buy smaller wardrobe outfits for me, and nothing was ever discussed, nothing was ever said. And by that as well, I mean, there wasn't ever a kind word. There wasn't ever a, hey, how are you going? It was just nothing. It was complete and utter silence.
Natasha says that the line between speaking about how somebody's body looks and linking it to a health issue is a difficult one to navigate. But turning a blind eye when somebody looks like something is wrong is also not the answer.
It's a little bit of a bullshit excuse that goes onto Instagram and to people who pretend that they are well-wishers and pretend that they care about women's bodies and that they care about the conversation and that they care about protecting women and how they think about their bodies by going, no, we can't discuss women's bodies. But the obviousness of somebody who is like clearly dying before your eyes is sitting right there. And so instead of intellectualizing it a bit more and sort of understanding, well, this is a different situation, this is not the same situation, this is different, you wash your hands of it and just go, no, blanket ban, not going to talk about it. Right? And that for me is really troubling. I don't think that does anything to forward the discourse. And also for young girls, if young girls don't see people coming out and saying, this is wrong, this is unhealthy, then those young girls and boys as well, they will think, well, then it is okay. You use silence as a way to go, well, I don't really know what to say, so I'm just going to be silent. for me, when I look at, I guess, Ariana Grande or anyone else in the media who might be suffering, I just think it's just not an excuse anymore, because the language that's available to us now is so much more plentiful than it was back then. But even back then, people could have said something.
When I reached out to principal psychologist at Enriching Lives Psychology, Carly Dober, she told me that she'd been monitoring Reddit threads and other discussions about what's been said about Ariana Grande in the past few days. And she found many people in the comments finding it incredibly difficult to digest. Carly, welcome to the Solo Bureau.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to ask you, first of all, what we do when we make assumptions about someone's health based on the way that they look on the outside. If we do say something to them based on how they look, are we telling them that we care about them, or are we telling them that the way they look is distressing us?
I think it really depends on the person, their knowledge and their intent, right? Because sometimes when we tell people what we think might be going on, maybe we do care, but it's not positive caring. Maybe it's negative caring, or engaging in the spectacle of someone's downfall, whatever it might be, or someone's challenges, whatever it might be. And sometimes it is genuine care and compassion and fear for what might come. And sometimes people are just piling on because that's where the conversation is going culturally.
A lot of people will say when they're called out for saying things to celebrities in this moment, they'll defend themselves by saying, I'm just concerned. But there's a difference, I guess, between being concerned about someone you know and love in your life and showing concern in amongst 10 million other people online and, think pieces and celebrity gossip. Why do we feel the need, especially if you're looking in the comments section of something like a post from Ariana Grande, where 10 million people will say, you're looking unwell, you're looking too thin. Why do other people feel the need to actually get involved in that conversation?
When we come to the outrage machine that is social media, it is so easy to give people feedback. It is so easy to leave comments. And I think if, these 10 million people maybe walked past Ariana Grande, not every one of them would make a comment. But also on the flip side, we do know that many people who are survivors or, in remission or recovery from eating disorders, they're also feeling very vulnerable and very triggered right now. Again, I don't know what's happening with Ariana Grande. I've never once met her in my life. Don't want to pretend I know. But for some people, what they are seeing in their mind, at least, is very real. So I think that for them, or for many people, they just almost feel compelled to say something.
This is the thing too, and you kind of touched on that, is we seem to like to diagnose people with a complete lack of any kind of medical knowledge. So we look at Ariana Grande, we see that she's lost a bit of weight, we go, well, obviously she has an eating disorder, she has anorexia, and so therefore we will help diagnose her in real time without any skills. What is the danger in diagnosing people on the internet? So maybe even just implanting the thought that maybe there is something wrong with them? What are we doing to people when we're diagnosing them?
Ultimately, pathologizing people that we've never met before. We aren't trained to diagnose at all. And also being blind to our cognitive biases, right? We don't know what we don't know. So many diagnoses, health and mental health, can mimic one another that we can often be wrong. We risk, firstly, giving ourselves a false air of legitimacy. I wouldn't try to diagnose someone's cardiac condition because I don't know enough to speak about it, and I'd probably get it wrong and give them incorrect information. Secondly, it can also stigmatize the people who are reading the comments who might actually be suffering from an eating disorder like anorexia nervosa, for example. And they might be noticing the vitriol or the tone of the comments, and they might think, well, geez, I've got to beat that look, or I've got to get better at this because it's not good enough. I'm not sick enough. I'm not unwell enough. Look, ultimately, I don't think it's very helpful because the person may or may not read it, and even if they do, what who are you to them? It's tricky.
You have mentioned a couple of impacts that this might be having on people who might be struggling with eating disorders and are seeing this conversation happen. But with the stigma that still seems to exist around people seeking treatment for eating disorders, could this potentially be putting people steps back from coming forward and seeking help?
Look, potentially, especially comments. We do know that eating disorders can be, and anorexia nervosa in particular can be one of the most fatal conditions. And a big part of that is body dysmorphia, where someone might look like very, very unwell, sickly thin and very malnourished, but they can't see that. And so no matter what you say to them, you'll just be encouraging the eating disorder to go further because they don't believe it. You know, people who might be seeing that, they might, and again, people don't mean to do this, but they might think, oh, that's what I have to look like. That's where I have to get to for people to, say something about me, for my illness to be noticed. And while that's not true, again, people who are in the midst of a catastrophic psychiatric illness, their brains are not operating very rationally.
When we spoke to Natasha, she said that for her experience, the silence was actually the worst thing for her, that she was on Australian television getting progressively smaller and smaller and smaller, and no one said anything. And to be fair, she was on TV sort of before we really had the mass machine that is social media of today. And perhaps people would have said something had that been in existence. But how important is it for us if we do have someone in our life, not a random celebrity on the internet that we're not diagnosing because we have no idea what's going on with Ariana Grande right now, other than the fact that she feels a need to step away from us because we're being too much. But if there is someone in our life that we think is struggling with something like an eating disorder, is not talking about it actually harming people too?
Yeah, it's a big double bind because eating disorders, many psychiatric illnesses, but eating disorders in particular, they thrive in secrecy. So not talking about it can just let it continue on unabated until, something awful happens health-wise, or the person is able to get out of it with different supports. And shaming people about it only makes that secrecy and isolation also continue, in which the eating disorder can fester. So what I would probably encourage people to think about doing, if this is someone close to you or someone that you are concerned about, ask them. Don't pretend to know, even though you might be correct. Ask them. You don't have to be a psychologist. You don't have to be a GP. That's not your job. Your job is to reach out and say, I'm here for you. I care about you. From what it looks like, I think you might be struggling with something. I might be wrong, and I'm really sorry for overstepping here. But I just want you to know I'm always here to talk through things if you ever need to.
Carly, thank you so much for your help on this. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Ariana Grande spoke at her Chicago concert overnight, telling her fans that her decision to step away from the limelight for a bit was not a rash one.
So basically, the announcement that was made yesterday was not a reactive or impulsive thing. It is something that I had decided. It's a plan that I had quietly made a long time ago, and it's a decision that was made from a thoughtful and empowered place. And I want you to know that many things can be true at the same time. I want to share this because I heard that my fans were worried that negativity was ruining things for me. But I just have to say that could not be more the full opposite.
Natasha says she wants more but also healthier discussions around eating disorders and understanding how that person in your life who might start to look like they're struggling might actually need you to be the brave one who speaks up for a moment.
One of the things that I think people don't understand with these kind of disorders is they thrive in silence, right? A lot of the stuff and a lot of the ways that sufferers continue to be able to prolong their illness, right? Or at least to get away with their illness, especially when you're younger and you're trying to sort of fool your parents and so forth, is by doing so in silence. Nobody talking about it, nobody finding out about what you're doing, nobody asking questions, nobody confronting you. And as awful as that is when you're going through it, to be confronted or to have to explain yourself, it's completely and utterly necessary because it is the only way that you're going to, I guess, flush out sort of the toxin from your system.
Thanks for hanging out with the Solo Bureau today. If you are struggling with an eating disorder and you need help, or if you know someone who is, reach out to the Butterfly Foundation. Their number is 1-800-33-4673. Also, if this has brought up feelings for you that you're finding hard to handle, speak to the team at Lifeline. I know you've probably heard that call to action before and not think it's for you, but trust me, it's for you. They're there right now, waiting for you to call 13 11 14. And to Ariana Grande, babe, we're sorry. Have a safe and happy day, team. Catch you tomorrow.